with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and just introduce him. Thank you for all of you joining us today. And Russell Marson is with us. He's the Senior VP of Investment Property Exchange, 1031s. And what I was really impressed with is he's got 26 years of experience in this field. He loves education, and I love education-based people, but he really believes education is the key to success. And he's also an award-winning public speaker throughout the whole nation and teaching on this very thing. And you guys, we're so privileged to have him today. One of his things that he's going to really talk about today is how to use this element of 1031 exchanges to capture more investor buyers. And so I want to just definitely welcome Russell Marson to the call. And Russell, is there anything about that intro that I did not share that you'd like to share before we get started?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. So, I mean, we're only together for like 30 minutes here today. It's pretty quick. So the only thing I really want everybody to remember today is my phone number, right? I'm local. You can call me. You can reach out to me anytime. I can meet with your clients in person. I'm also, I teach accredited courses for CPAs and attorneys. So I'm a free resource for your client's tax advisor as well.
Awesome. I think that's so awesome. I just did a 1031 exchange on an investment property not too long ago. So this is kind of fresh in my mind. I'm really excited to hear about in this challenging market, how can we still use this? So just a quick question to get us started. With the real estate market kind of changing right now and shifting, what is an attractive message to put out to solicit even more clients that own investment real estate?
Yeah. So, and you mentioned, attracting buyers, but also we're talking about today how to really attract sellers as well and new listings. I think a lot of people are scared out there right now, obviously, because interest rates are climbing and, inventory across the country is climbing in a lot of cases. So we're in that shifting kind of market. So there's fear in there. And with that comes, hesitation, right? To fulfill whatever your objectives are. I think a really powerful message right now is soliciting people that own investment properties, any type of investment property, it could be rentals, raw land, commercial, whatever, with the fact that, hey, as the market's shifting, maybe it's time to reevaluate your real estate, right? And as agents, you need to position yourself as your client's real estate financial advisor, right? You want to make sure that you have the ability to be able to analyze any of your clients' real estate to make sure that their real estate is meeting whatever their current financial objectives are, right? So I think that's a big message. One question you need to ask everybody you work with, and it doesn't matter whether you're helping them to buy or to sell, is what other real estate do you own, right? You need to ask every client that question. And then you're going to make an offer. Say, I'm going to ask you for some numbers. I'm going to take that information back to my office, and I'm going to do a free analysis on all of your real estate. And I'm going to make sure that all of the real estate you currently own is meeting whatever your current financial objectives are. And if not, I tell them. And if not, I'm going to encourage you to list and sell the properties that aren't. And I'm going to help you exchange into something else that better meets whatever your current financial objectives are. Right. I think that's a big, important message to kind of get in the door with clients right now in this scary market, is to help them to reevaluate their real estate.
I love that. I love that question, you guys. That's a great question for everybody to write down. What other investment, what other real estate do they own, and what can you do to help them win even in this challenging market? And speaking of that, with our changing market, what strategies can we kind of implement that would have a significant financial upside for sellers to exchange right now? What's the financial upside right now, even in this market?
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of opportunities. I still think that one of the greatest ones right now that's just really obvious is soliciting landowners, right? Soliciting people that own raw land, like building lots, things like that. Land that doesn't provide any income, doesn't provide any depreciation by default as well, because it's just raw land. So there's a lot of people that are sitting on land, and this is what we call stagnant equity, right? Where you own a piece of land and it's worth $400,000 or $500,000. That's $400,000 or $500,000 of capital that's not providing you with any kind of cash flow any kind of depreciation benefits, etc. So it's great to solicit the landowners and let them know, hey, you can sell your raw land and it's free up that stagnant equity and buy improved property, like a single family rental property. Now you'd have cash flow you didn't have before. Now you have depreciation that you didn't have before. And in a lot of cases, you have a faster appreciating asset. The misconception there is this like-kind terminology within 1031, right? It's the greatest misconception in the industry. Like I said, I teach accredited courses for CPAs. I can't count the number of times the CPAs have told my clients, you can't exchange raw land for improved property. That's 100% false. Like, all real estate is like-kind with all real estate. It's not what a property looks like, it's how it's held that makes it like-kind. Any property that's held for business or investment purposes is like-kind with any other kind of business or investment property. That means raw land that doesn't provide any kind of income is like-kind and exchangeable with any other type of business or investment real estate. So you can sell raw land, buy rentals, commercial, industrial, apartment complexes, mini storage. All of those are like-kind with one another. And I promise you, most landowners don't know about the 1031 exchange, or they have a great misconception about this whole like-kind terminology, and they think they can only sell land and buy land. And what's the financial upside in doing so? There really isn't one. So
Wow,
landowners,
that's a huge aha. And, you know, I think one thing about that is, you know, the increase, if someone might have bought some land a couple years ago, looking to build, and then they were facing increased costs in building and supplies. I imagine that's even a bigger opportunity than we think, is researching raw land opportunities.
Yeah, and so so one of the number one ways people receive raw land is through inheritance, or they bought a building lot that they were planning on building on years ago, and they never did, right? And these properties, they own them free and clear. So in their mind, they're like, well, this property is not costing me anything, so I'll just hang on to it. The reality is, it's costing you a ton of money, an opportunity cost, right? That's a loss of income, loss of depreciation, and loss of appreciation, you know, because you're holding on to that asset that you think is costing you nothing.
Yeah, that's a huge opportunity. It's a big aha for me even today, is, you know, what landowners might have acquired it through inheritance or had bought it, you know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, and like, wow, I cannot build like I thought, or it's just, it's costing them the opportunity. So I love that. So, you know, I know that, so you're in California, correct? Are you in
Yes.
California? I know a lot of people from California are, you know, seeming to kind of leave the state. I'm not going to
Just a
put
few.
any political thing on that one. I know a lot of them are leaving California. Can you sell a property in California and exchange it by a 1031 in other states, or even vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. 1031 is federal, right? So you can sell in California by anywhere else in the country. And this California exodus that we all hear about is absolutely real, has been for over 5 years now. You know, like I said, I've been doing this for 26 years. The last 5 years, I've never seen so much one-way traffic going out of state with investment properties. You know, initially it was states like Idaho and Montana, and then more recently it's gone to like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. Seeing a lot of North Carolina, South Carolina now, just for more affordability and less or no taxes. So a lot of people are doing that. You know, a lot of people initially just did it with their primary residence. And so they sold their primary residence here in California. They moved to Tennessee, and now they have the primary residence there. Well, you know what? They still own properties here in California in a lot of cases, right? They didn't sell those. They just wanted to get out of state as fast as possible. Those are great people to solicit too. I solicit people that live out of state or out of the area and own properties locally, you know, wherever you farm geographically. And let them know, hey, you know, 1031 is federal. You can sell your California properties and exchange into investment properties in Tennessee where you now live. Why do you want to manage from 2,000 miles away? So now there's one thing to know about California. As you know, we are the heaviest tax state in the country. And we also have a special provision. It's called the California clawback, literally like talons, clawback, right? That's not a nickname. That's what California named it. Which is not surprising. So when you sell a property in California, a lot of the exodus people are moving to other states because, you know, for less taxation, right? So they move to, let's say, a state like Nevada right next door, which doesn't have a state tax. And their mindset is, hey, I'm going to sell my California properties, exchange into Nevada. I'll become a Nevada resident. When I sell my Nevada property in the future, I'll be a Nevada resident. Therefore, I won't be subject to California taxation. That is not correct. California enacted this clawback so that when you sell a property in California, the Franchise Tax Board does recognize the 1031, right? So they allow you to sell, do an exchange. You'll defer both state and federal tax. But what happens is when you take your money out of the state and buy properties elsewhere, they track you. You have to file a little supplemental return. It's a little one pager. It's an easy thing to do. But you basically have to tell the state every year that you haven't sold that property in Nevada yet. Because the year that you do sell the property, you will owe California the tax that you left the state with. It's only the old game, right? Not the new game. Because if you bought the property in Nevada and you owned it for 6 years and then you sold it, that new appreciation you've experienced in Nevada is not taxed by California. It's the old tax you left the state with. But that's only if you cash out, right? If you don't cash out, which means that you continue to do a 1031 exchange, you'll never pay the state any tax. And there's always one way that works every single time. So if you don't want the state of California to have your tax, a popular strategy is to die. That works every single time. So in death, and by the way, a state tax is incredibly favorable, right? A lot of people say, I don't want to do an exchange because eventually I'm going to have to pay the tax. And maybe I believe that taxes are historically low now and they're going to be raised in the future. That's not correct. Right? Taxation is not inevitable. Current estate tax law is incredibly favorable, right? If you're single and your estate is below $11.5 million, there's no estate tax, right? And if you're married, it's double that, $23 million. And your heir is going to step up in basis, right? Which is a really beautiful thing. If I bought the property 50 years ago for 100 grand, when I pass away, it's worth $2 million, right? So let's say I pass away yesterday, which makes this Zoom call kind of awkward. So if I pass away yesterday and I sell it, it's worth $2 million when I pass away. That's my kid's basis. It's stepped up to that, right? So they can call you right afterwards, Jackie, and say, hey, I want you to list and sell Pop's old property that I just inherited. They don't need to do an exchange, right? They have zero tax consequence because their cost basis is $2 million and they're selling for $2 million. There's no profit or gain there, right? So that's why we say, don't let your clients cash out of real estate. Instead, just help them to continue to exchange into something else that better meets whatever their current financial objectives are in life.
Okay, I love that. You know, in speaking with realtors out there, other than kind of the misnomer of maybe like for like, you have to 1031 a like property. What is another common misunderstanding of 1031s that maybe agents don't understand in this market? Like what's another common maybe misunderstanding or something that you really need to educate agents in?
Well, one area is like primary residence. So, like if you can't use a 1031 exchange to buy a primary residence, right? Or a second home or vacation or personal use type property. So there's just this automatic assumption that, okay, there's no way to do that, right? But there actually is. The IRS created back in 2008 a safe harbor. It's Revenue Procedure 2008-16. It is my favorite revenue procedure in the entire Internal Revenue Code because it is actually a recipe that states, how you have to treat a property before or after an exchange in order to convert it to personal use. So if you want to buy something, let's say you want to sell a couple rental properties, right? And you'd like to take all of that money and buy your expensive dream home up in Tahoe or at the ocean, right? Or in Hawaii. Let's face value, I can't do it because it's a personal use property. What I can do is use this safe harbor to go through a conversion process. So I can sell my rentals. If I would have just sold them outright, I would have been killed in taxes because I owned them for at a very close to zero basis. Now I can take all of that money, pay no taxes, buy my very expensive property, dream home. All I have to do for the first 2 years, and this is the time period of the safe harbor, for the first 2 years, I have to treat that property 2 ways. And I have to treat it both of these ways for each of the first 2 years. One is I have to limit my personal use to 2 weeks per year or less, or 10% of the rental history, whichever is a greater number. right? So if you rented it on Airbnb for 300 days a year, you can use it personally for 30 days a year. And bear in mind, if you're going there to like paint it or mow the lawn, right? That's a maintenance visit. That's not a personal use visit. So there's ways to use it for more than the 2 weeks a year, but within the code. But nevertheless, that's the first thing I have to do is limit my personal use, right? Second thing I have to do is I have to show income on it, rental income. That's an insanely low standard. I only have to show 2 weeks per year of income. That's it, right? So that means I can sell raw land, rental properties, commercial, whatever. I can use all of those monies to buy my very expensive dream property. And all I have to do for the first 2 years is limit my personal use and find a buddy to rent it to for 2 weeks a year. Yeah, that's all I have to do. After 2 weeks, guess what I got to do? Whatever I want. I can move into it as a primary residence. I can treat it as a pure second home and vacation home. I never have to rent it again. And my exchange is safe harbor, can't be challenged. That's huge, right? One question I always ask clients when I'm talking to them on the phone is, hey, do you know what you want to buy yet to complete your exchange? If they say no, I ask them a couple more questions. Well, in the next 2 years, are you thinking of relocating somewhere else and buying another primary residence? Or have you thought about buying a second home or vacation home somewhere in the country? If they say yes to any of those questions, I tell them about this revenue procedure. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea I could accomplish it with a 1031 exchange. This is another question that you all as agents need to ask your clients, when you're sitting down and you're vetting them for whatever their financial objectives are for the future, right? And with their real estate holdings. Ask them that same question. Are you going to be moving to another primary or relocating somewhere in the next 2 years? You want to buy a second home or vacation? If they say yes, point it out to them. Say, look, you own these investment properties right now. Let's sell a couple of those. And listen, sell them now, take advantage of that and achieve those goals right now.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, just to imagine that you could do a second home or a vacation home, through a 1031 exchange. I love those two criteria that really is pretty easy to process and easy to prove. And we have a question. What happens when you sell that home down the road? Is it treated as a primary for tax purposes?
Great question. Yeah. So obviously that's why somebody wants to do it, right? So they can eventually either just live in it forever or eventually sell it and eliminate a lot of that tax. There is a tax benefit to converting it to a primary residence. You will never be able to eliminate all of the tax. I'll give you a quick example. So first of all, if you, by the way, the primary residence capital gain exclusion is called section 121 of the Internal Revenue Code, right? So when you use a 1031 exchange to buy another property that you eventually want to use as a principal residence, remember in an exchange, you're deferring the tax, right? So all of that tax you would have paid is now in the basis of the new house you just bought. So you have to rent it for a minimum of 2 years first. After 2 years, then you can live in it. Now, before you can sell it as a primary residence using this section 121, which is that 250 or 500,000, you have to own it for a minimum of 5. You can't sell it under 5 years using section 121. That's only because you bought it with the 1031 exchange, right? You can still buy and sell your primary residence every 2 years and pay no tax. But if you buy it with a 1031 and you want to sell it under 121, you have to hold it for a minimum of 5. So now how much tax you would pay, I'm gonna change the scenario a little bit. So let's say I buy it, I rent it out for the first 3 years, and then I move into it and I live in it for 3 years, and then I sell it. So I've owned it for a total of 6. Then I sell it as my home, which I can do under 121. What I have to do then is, in the year of sale, I have to look back on all the years I've owned it, in my case, 6 years, and I have to define each year into one of two categories, either a qualified or a non-qualified year. I'm trying to sell it and pay no tax, right? So a qualified year is a year that I lived in it as my primary. A non-qualified year, it was either vacant or rented. So in my case, that was 3 and 3, so 50%. So I get to exclude up to 50% of the gain, up to my $500,000 exclusion that I get. So if I had $1 million of total gain, right? Because I remember I brought gain over in my exchange. I've owned it for 6 years, so it's experiencing new gain. So if that total gain was $1 million, I would still get my $500,000 exclusion. If my total gain was $600,000, I only get $300,000 right of the gain. So I get a prorated share of that. The longer I live in it, obviously, the better that ratio works for me, right? If I own it for 10 years, live in it for 8, I got to pull out 80% of it. So there's still a benefit in doing that, but that's just kind of the way it works.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for answering that question. The last couple of years have been really challenging for, investors that might have a single family home that because of the pandemic and it was hard to collect the rent and difficult to evict tenants, etc. It's been challenging, especially for people that might really be relying heavily on that passive income. For their rentals for them to live. And so can a 1031 exchange benefit someone that is really tired of managing a single family rental?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to correct you in one word you said there. You said passive income. There's nothing passive about the income of a single family rental property, right? It's the most labor intensive type of real estate to own. So yeah, but you're right. California, as we all know, California is not a landlord friendly state, right? And especially through COVID. So the last couple of years have been challenging for people that own single family, especially like you said, that are kind of depending on the income. Maybe they're at retirement age. Because they've lost a lot of money in rental income in a lot of cases, and they haven't been able to evict, right? So those people are they're scared, they're tired, but a lot of them are still not selling, because of fear of this market. I think right now that is actually the greatest opportunity from a solicitation of listings right now is to that demographic, to people that are of retirement age. So in other words, they've owned single family rental properties for a long time. They've owned it for a long time, and they own multiple single family rental properties. I think those people absolutely need to be saved by you. What I'm about to describe to you is not a sales pitch. It's just pure math, right? People of retirement age that own multiple single family rental properties should be selling right now. And you need to help them to understand why that is and to execute that strategy. And here's the reason why, right? There's a lot of people that are retirement age that own multiple single family rental properties. They own multiple single family because the first one they ever bought 40 years ago was single family. They liked it, it worked out well, they bought more. They continued. That's the asset class they got comfortable with. They don't know anything about commercial real estate. They don't know anything about apartment complexes, nothing, right? Industrial. They're just familiar with single family. If you understand analysis of real estate, you will know that single family rental properties, especially in the state of California, the primary financial objective of single family is not cash flow, it's appreciation, right? They're phenomenal vehicles for long-term appreciation. Not that great in all of asset classes of real estate. They rank near the bottom of cash flow, right? But appreciation, they're phenomenal. Well, early on in life or through their life, appreciation was their objective. Now, by default, because they're retired and own a bunch of single family rental properties free and clear, they should be positioning into cash flow real estate, right? That they can double their cash flow if they go into asset classes, and they can even go passive. Like commercial real estate, for example, is designed for cash flow. You have triple net lease structures, which are designed for passiveness, right? So you can execute that. But here's the problem. If you go and solicit somebody in retirement age that all they've ever owned is single family, and you say, hey, take advantage of this market, right? Because you're still selling high. Plus, you're talking about bringing single family rental properties onto the market, which typically are going to be the lower end of the spectrum of all the single family, that's the market that moves, right? So it's still a great time to sell those. You encourage them, hey, take advantage of the market now and sell high. Like, no, I'll get killed in taxes. Do a 1031 exchange, of course, is your reply. Yeah, but then I have to exchange like kind for like kind, a house for a house, right? That's what most people think. No, you can buy commercial. And they're like, whoa, pump the brakes, right? I don't know anything about commercial. I don't want to buy commercial. I'm afraid of that. I don't know how to manage it. I don't know anything about it. And the answer to that is the DST. And this is something we're probably not going to have a lot of time to cover it this morning, but the Delaware Statutory Trust is a phenomenal tool for you guys to use to get these listings. Because I promise you, there are people, the demographic that I'm describing here would gladly sell their single family headaches and buy into a DST if they simply knew this option was available to them. What it is, just in a nutshell, is it's a fractional ownership interest in an institutional grade asset. So in other words, they're buying a small portion of $100 million property somewhere in the country, right? They're called institutional grade because in the past, only institutions, REITs, insurance companies, things like that, could actually buy these kinds of assets. Now, because of this approved structure by the IRS, by the way, what I'm describing to you, this DST was approved by the IRS back in 2004 as like kind replacement property in a 1031 exchange. There's a long track record on these asset classes. But now your client is selling a $400,000 rental property, can afford to buy into an institutional grade asset and reap those kinds of benefits right now, and go completely passive. So they're great asset classes to exchange into for these kind of people.
Well, that is really, great insight. I know Don had just put in there that we can capture or find out who these maybe landowners or other owners or non-primary residence owners or age of owners, et cetera, through Property Radar, which Don's been talking a lot about in soliciting business. And we just have a couple more minutes here, and I really encourage you guys all to write down his phone number, 530-755-8355, for all of these questions that maybe we couldn't answer. I guess for the last 2 minutes here, we are a heavy lead gen company, and if you're a realtor, lead gen is part of your business. What kind of calls could we make today? What would you encourage us to make today in our lead gen to secure a listing or create a conversation that would create an appointment for us to go on this week? What would you say?
Yeah, so before I get to that, also one thing I want to throw out to you guys is, what is a great thing to do, especially in this market, is we should talk about doing an evening investor seminar for your clients, right, where you guys would actually attract in your investor clients and also potential clients, right, that you'd like to work with, because it's easy to find them and mail to them, right, the non-owner occupied owners, for how to build wealth through real estate investing. You do it for like an hour and a half in the evening, midweek. I do it for free, right? We just find a location for you guys. But those are phenomenal. And why? Because people are afraid of this market, but they also want to find out about this market, right? So I think now's a great time to put that message out to attract people in to, talk about how to build wealth in this market, why it's still now a good time to buy and sell real estate as well. So if you guys want to do that, just let me know. But I still think the best solicitations, the highest and best value for solicitations, are landowners and the people who own multiple single family rental properties. By the way, on my website, I created three investor postcard templates that speak to the messaging that we've been talking about today. Right, one postcard talks about, hey, you should sell land and buy improved property. Otherwise, it's time to reevaluate your real estate, right? So you can download those and you can use those for free as solicitations as well.
Okay, and what is the name of your website?
So the website is, it's my microsite within the website, right? So it's www.ipx1031.com/Marsan, M-A-R-S-A-N, which is my last name. You'll know you're in my website because you'll see my little picture there. I apologize for that. Bookmark that once you're in there. And there's tons of tools. Sign up for the newsletter. That's such a great, and look at some of the archives in the more recent newsletters too, because they're great pieces to put out on social media. Like one recently was how to buy your dream home with a 10.
I love it. That is fabulous. You guys, I did put the website and his email and his phone number is on there a couple of times for, getting in touch with him. And I love the idea of a free seminar. I mean, you can do that in a webinar form or Zoom form as well, if you don't do it in person. And it
could be a hybrid.
People are curious. Yeah, it could be a hybrid. People are curious, and you guys, we are the ones that are bringing in the solutions and helping our clients, even in this market, to create wealth. And so I love that. And, Russell, I want to just thank you for being on today. I want to thank you for your expertise and for making yourself available to this team. And you guys, I encourage you guys to reach out to him, find out where he can help you, and definitely get an event on your calendar to create conversations around your network and your sphere about what you can do to help them to gain and increase their wealth. So thank you very, very much, all of you for joining. And I hope you enjoyed Russell's level of expertise in 1031 exchanges. You guys have it.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Jackie and Tom.
much. Thank you, Russell, Jackie. That was amazing. So the next right thing to do is to jump on our role play for Dialing for Dollars at 9:45 and then Dialing for Dollars at 10 o'clock, 10 to noon. Someone asked me the other day, well, what is that? Well, what that is we all make outbound calls, conversations while we're on a Zoom. We do it. This is the community of collaboration right now. So you mute yourself, you're on the Zoom, you're making calls. And today's a special day because at 10 a.m., we're going to get a photo of everyone making their calls, and that'll be out there on social media. So that's today, this Friday at Freedom Friday, a special guest, Tina Call. She sells 1,000 homes a year. She's amazing. You don't want to miss that. So see you all soon. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Russell. 9:45. Click the link. Dialing for Dollars. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Jackie. Thank you, Russell.
Thanks, Jackie.
Welcome.
Thanks, Russell.
Good job.